All right, good evening. This is Tuesday, March 21st, meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. Preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and some of the attendees are participating, all the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything you decide to screen share on your computer, or anything you broadcast will be captured and recorded. And we'll take a little roll call to make sure we have a quorum. Carolyn?
Here.
MJ?
Here.
Julie?
Here.
Wayne? Eloise? What the hell's going on with
I know. Why is there feedback?
Eloise, Wayne, Julie, MJ, Carolyn, Tim? We have a quorum. Accordingly, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:33. This meeting's being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Holy mackerel, 3 years ago.
Wow.
We're in the current state of emergency. Yep. Specific information and guidelines for the remote participation are available on the Town of Berlin website. And la-di-da. That's that. And still waiting for Ellie, huh? Well, we can take care of some housekeeping. Minutes. Anybody want to move the minutes from 1:31:23?
So moved.
And we have a second?
Second.
And any additions or corrections?
Looked good.
All right.
They were long.
Yeah,
Go on. Meeting.
Carolyn,
Sir.
MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Tim is aye. Good, those are done. We don't have any bills, do we, Maureen?
We do. We have the computer bill. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, we're almost there. Still no word back from the town administrator's office about getting our account so that we can have that on the website so we can get connected. So I guess I'll follow up on that next week. Keep following up on a weekly basis, but it's a Dell computer laptop, and the total was $1,811.75.
All right, do we have a motion to pay that bill?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Carolyn,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Tim is aye. That passes. That's great, thank you, because now Maureen will be able to keep everything that's CPA on one laptop. And then
Yeah.
going forward, everything will be on that, which is great.
I already got the minutes and a lot of my stuff already moved over. I'm just excited to get it should be I think what we're asking for it to be a CPAC@townofberlin.com, right? We just want your committee name and on,
Yep.
and that will be good.
Great.
Oh, there's Ellie.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Hi, Ellie.
Hi there.
We did the minutes and we paid some bills. So you
Okay.
missed all the fun stuff. So account balances, we met with June and we feel comfortable that we have somewhere around 48,000 in the open space account. We have about 190 in the community housing account. And we have over 300 in the balance reserve. So we're in good shape, and we'll chat about the articles and what those account balances mean, but everything should be fine given those balances. We won't have access to the 850 or whatever it's going to, 840, I guess, is what would come back to us from the state match on the Horseshoe Pond piece. That won't be available to us until it's certified, and it won't be certified until later in the summer. And that would mean that if there were a town meeting in the fall and something crucial came up, we might have access to those funds. But as a general purpose use of those, we probably wouldn't do anything with them until 2024.
Quick question, does that, when that money comes back, remind me, does it come back to our general fund, or does any of it have to go into the open space bucket?
The way we've understood it, if it came out of open space, it goes back into open space. But those accounts were being limited by a 10% figure per year. So the whole amount won't go back into those, only the amount that came out of those
Okay.
specific
But
accounts.
the amount that did come out, that would have to go back into that.
That's the way we've interpreted what we've heard from the state.
Okay.
What June is trying to decide is whether the money comes into the town's general fund and then gets voted out of the, so it's still new to us.
Right. I don't think so, because it has to go to CPA. It like,
Right.
there's no choice. So why would it go to a vote?
That's our assumption, but she's still asking some good questions.
Right.
So that's what's going on with balances. Anybody on the committee have any updates about anything that's exciting going on in their world? Why is that funny, Julie? What is-
CPA related.
Oh, I have something. I was thinking of all the exciting things that are happening in my world right now. But the court project was put out to bid, and we received a bid, so that's and the select board approved it, so we are moving forward with the courts and the project.
And the bid came in at,
The bid came in over, it came in $25,000 higher because of inflation costs. When we had that quoted out, that was a while ago, before inflation went up as it did. So we spoke with the board about using ARPA funds to make up that difference. And they were supportive of this was a good fit for ARPA funds, just to bring those projects to the finish line, projects that go over bid. So
Great.
we're excited.
perfect.
Tim,
Yes,
last night at the capital planning, they were going over the CPA funds. They said it was 3 projects, and you wanted 350 for open space in the house. And there is another 100,000 that you've taken out of planning board, housing partnership mitigation. Do I have it that correct?
not anymore. I'm meeting with finance tomorrow night, and
Oh,
we want to talk about what's going on with that particular article when we get to it in the agenda, but it's good to know
Okay.
that it's being discussed with capital planning. So we'll get to that in a minute.
I met with the select board at their meeting last night to go over the plan. So fortunately, my camera wasn't working. Not that anybody missed seeing me, but I did. But I could share my screen, so I did share the screen and showed the plan and kind of went through it. They were all pleased with it. Thought it was informative. There were some questions about. Peg asked a couple questions about the funding, and if it's estimate, the surcharges are estimated and stuff like that. And I basically said that it's not until it's all certified. We don't spend anything until it's certified. So the 3%, you can estimate what it is based on what the taxable amount is, but it's based on what's actually paid. So that was one question. Another was, and I guess this is related to the report, to just make sure that we're being accurate, because we were talking, I think it references, and I should have it up to look at, but we referenced that Berlin voted 3%. But it was pointed out by Scott that it's 3% over $100,000 valuation. Is that true? I didn't know the answer to that.
So there's certain pieces. So if the first 100,000 is exempt.
Is exempt, and I think the point was that maybe the way we explained it in our plan doesn't discuss that.
Doesn't, okay, we can go back. And
So
look
I
at
just said I said I would just bring it back to the committee, so that if the way it's described in the plan isn't really accurate, then we would look at how we wrote it and make sure it reflects, that it's not just 3% of whatever property taxes are, but 3% over the first over 100. And so the only other, did anybody have any questions or comments on that?
No,
And
I'm glad you did that.
And the other comment was, they thought it was really helpful, the plan and everything, and they asked if we would have any hard copies available for the public at town meeting. And I said, hadn't been discussed. I said, it is 18 pages long, but I said, I said, so we can talk about it. I said, but, I said, for those that, are not online, I did mention that it's online for anybody to see. So we just sort of went over all the projects that are outstanding and things like that. So it seemed well received. So check.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Did people have some thoughts about whether we should print up copies for town meeting?
I have no issue with you printing up a summary, but I think it'd be a waste of 18 pages for many people.
It almost seems like we could do a summary with a link, just identify
Yeah.
where it is and tell them to go find it if they want further detail.
Right.
I wouldn't be in favor of I guess that clicked in my head as soon as it was asked. I was like 18 pages. That's a lot to
Right.
print, but a summary with the information of people, just to remind people if they want to learn more about, it was easy to present to them. So I think all of our organization made it make sense. So that was good.
Have we got anything that exists already that's a summary?
I don't think so. A summary of the whole plan?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like they were asking about.
Oh, they weren't asking for a summary. They were just mentioning the whole plan, but I think,
Yeah, but
I think you could take the beginning of it and just remind people what CPA is and that part about what the funds are and, and two sides of a piece of paper, have some of the amounts of money. And if people want to know what the projects are, they can go here and.
you'd only need 75 copies or so anyway, probably, right?
I don't even know that you need that many. I mean, it's not for every person to hand out to every person. You could just make it available at the front if people want it.
Yeah. Eloise, when you give out stuff, what percentage of the people take stuff? 10%, 20%?
It all depends on the subject matter and what's bringing them out to a town meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, try to condense it down to a half a piece of paper and you can do both sides.
Yeah. Anybody in the mood to do a condensed version?
If I can look at it, sure. I mean, I think I can grab stuff from the PDF. So
You want to give it a shot?
yeah, if I need help, maybe Maureen can help me finalize it. Sure.
It'd be great.
And I was just double checking, searching through the PDF, and it does not appear that we did say anything about the exemption on the first 100,000, which I think is probably an oversight on my part. That should have gone into the introductory section. I was mainly focused in that kind of part of it on making sure people knew they were getting the bang for their buck on the 3%. Seeing a lot of other towns have not been doing that. So I, you know, at the time I felt that was an important thing for us to highlight so people knew, you know, how much more money they get out of doing the 3% versus had we done the 1. But yeah, that's something that when we update it should go into the introductory section.
Good, thanks. I got an email came from Stuart with the consortium, and he said that the State Department of Revenue was forecasting a downturn in their receipts. And so the amount of money that would be available for the match in November next year would probably be reduced by a good chunk. So where this year we got 99% and last year we got 100%, next year, you know, we might find that we only get in the 70 or 75% range, perhaps. So that's important for us to keep in mind as we look forward to other proposed projects down the road. That'll impact next year more than this year, certainly. Anything else that anybody wants to update us on? All right. Maureen and I were talking when we met last, and this has to do with sort of the process that we want to follow with projects and trying to keep track of where people are. So like Julie's report tonight was helpful, and what we're proposing, I think, is that we'd automatically, after town meeting, once we got into June or whatever, begin to touch base with new projects and outline what we expect from proponents going forward, but also catch up with existing projects and get updates. And the question I think that we'll have to explore is, if a project continues on for multiple years, for instance, and the funds aren't expended, you know, what course of action do we want to take? I think in some towns that Maureen's familiar with, if it really appears as though that money's just going to sit stagnant, there's a way in which to bring it back into CPA so it can get actively used for projects that might be able to expend the funds in a reasonable amount of time. Was Groton the town that you talked about, Maureen, that has a procedure, or was it Concord?
Nope, it was Concord. So with my research for, you know, the application and all, I looked at Concord, Mass, Stowe, Groton, of course, because I worked there for so many years, my own hometown, Littleton. And then I looked a little bit at Lexington, just because sometimes they're just the hallmark of everything. But Concord definitely, when they actually like have an expiration date, like things are supposed to be done within 3 years kind of thing, is what they do. And then, you know, I think Stowe marries up with, you know, with us greatly. And one thing that I do like that they do is they do have the people come back in so that you know where the situation is. And it could even be such that maybe something has gone over and then there needs to be attention and whatnot, just so that, you know, you're not all blindsided by, you know, something that might go awry. Like, you never know, a project could be started and then there's a roadblock for some reason that costs more money, but you just don't want the money sitting there for, like, you know, 2 years. But and Concord, Mass, they have a lot going on, so I think that's why they do it. They don't want to stop one project when someone keeps saying we're getting to it, and they don't do it, kind of thing. So yeah.
So maybe an annual check-in
Yeah.
with people just to kind of see where things are.
I mean, I think it would depend on your project too. Like, Carl, what did he say? He said he could be done really by the end of the summer. So he could really, and in his case, he could even maybe just even send an email kind of saying, because it's that simple. But if it's like a big stage situation, especially if you ever get into projects that are phases, you definitely want those check-ins, And then the other thing that I was thinking about, and it's not in this packet, I kind of figured I'd slow boat it in on the different research and just start with the application, is having every project get an assigned number, almost like a PO system, so that when it gets into the accounting office, they know that this matches that, because Horseshoe Pond is a really great example. Some people call it Horseshoe Pond. Some people still call it Lyman and Lehman, conservation. So
Yeah, there were several names floating around for a while.
So if that application comes in and I assign a number and a code to it, and then that's always on any invoices that ends up in accounting, I think that would just run smoother to make sure that we all know what the balances really are.
Yeah.
That's a good-
June would probably like us for that.
Yeah, I think what we talked about trying to, maybe have a meeting with June to see exactly how she would like to see it, Because it's just it's going to get busier and busier, and you're going to have, the completes, the in progress, the wait, like you're going to have a lot of different columns, a lot of different things going real shortly here.
But yeah, like if we told anybody with a project that was going to last more than 1 year,
Well, maybe that's,
that we would want them to come in for an update.
well, maybe that's part of the, I mean, is that on the application? And I'm just sort of brain dead on that. If, the anticipated, time of the project when they apply, is that something that's on the application? Or if it's
So,
not?
Yeah, I got that. Did everybody get the copies that the end of it on those steps? I kind of drafted a quick little letter like, congratulations, town meeting passed your project. Now here's what we want you to continue to do, kind of thing. So they would, for them to sign off on that, they'd be an understanding that they would need to come back, and you as a committee would make the decision on how many times that you would want to see them. And, and you could get, even like, get me some photographs, show me how the project's going,
Yeah.
some
you
like
have
a
the
town like Lexington. Yeah, so there's a lot that can be happening there, but I think that acknowledgement letter probably will hold a lot of clout in having them come back, kind of thing, to let you know.
That projected completed date, I think that's good. I'm just sort of looking at it right now again. So I think that makes a lot of sense to do that. And, that's something, I guess, to make sure we talk about in our process as we're looking at stuff is, how long something's going to take, and I don't know if that's notated in our chart, but we should go back and consider that too, depending. So no, I think it's good.
Good. So that really is a continued discussion we'll continue with as I think we'll start the conversation about the application process later in our agenda, but this fits strategically into that conversation, and we can continue to work on this over the course of the next month or so. Public input. We don't have any public, do we?
Nope.
All right, so we're all set. Town meeting warrant articles. So we've got 3, and the first one's the fence, 45,000. That amount is available in the open space account. There's about 48,000 in that account right now. So we can pull 45 for the fence and that article's written, it's been submitted to the select board, and I talked to town council today, and she was beginning to review articles, so that's all beginning to move forward evidently. And then the second article is the pavilion, and that's 150. And that's available in the budgeted reserve account. And we can vote on that, but the money is there. And the third one is the one that Eloise spoke of, which is the Carter Street parcel. And this one is getting more complex all the time, unfortunately. So I spoke with Mass Housing Trust and got their advice. I spoke to town council today. I spoke to Habitat for Humanity. The Housing Trust folks said, why don't you just go ahead and buy the property, pay $400,000, buy the property, and then find a third party like the Metro West Collaborative Development Collaborative, that Assabet Housing Collaborative that we're part of uses as a facilitator, and get them to handle the whole process from the rehab through to the final sale, because that's what they do. And then some money would come back to the town at the final sale. So you wouldn't spend, you'd spend the 400,000 up front, but you'd get some of that back and would come back to CPA. So I talked to the folks at the collaborative, and they said that they could help us with the final stages of the process, but given their staff and their commitment of their time, and the fact that this is one unit that would be protected rather than multiple units, they didn't have the bandwidth to help us out. So then the next option was to buy a deed rider from the current owners, along with the open space. So you'd spend essentially 175,000 out of community housing, which we've got, because we've got 190. You'd spend 100,000 out of budgeted reserve for the open space, so the total would be 275 or so. You'd require the current owners to take the 275 from the town. We'd separate the house from the remaining 6.5 acres, so we'd create 2 lots. We'd buy the one lot with the open space. The lot with the house would go to a third party, and they'd be required, after they refurbished it, to put a deed rider on it then. And then we'd work with the Metro West Development Group and marketing the product and doing the lottery and all that stuff. And town council said that's doable, but the cleaner way in her mind was still to buy the property outright and then find a party like the Metro West folks or Habitat or somebody like that. But I said to town council, well, who works on single unit projects like this? And she said, there aren't too many, because it's a time consuming process and they end up with one unit at the end of the day rather than multiple units. So then the third option is simply to buy from the current owners the open space and let them market the house as a market rate unit. And it's we don't gain an affordable unit, but we do gain the open space. And in that case, you might spend, maybe 125 out of the budgeted reserve. But again, we have that. And you wouldn't spend any out of the housing, community housing portion of CPA. So those are the three options. And
The
I don't
property,
know which one I'm interested to hear what people think, I guess.
are the property owners amenable to the third option you discussed? Like, is that been discussed with James Holyoke and
We
talked to them?
talked about that with James, and James said he thinks that would work.
I mean, to me, that seemed, I guess for me, listening to the complexity of the others and trying to get town meeting to vote on something, the more up in the air, unclear things there are, the more people poke holes in it that can blow a whole deal. So I guess my perspective would be that the last option sounds the most appealing because we're spending the least. I guess I'm more concerned, I guess, as a member of this committee about, not that I'm not concerned about the affordable housing, but we've talked about the fact that it's only one unit. The bigger appeal to me seems to be the open space in the center of town and controlling that. So, so for me, that seems to be the most appealing. And in some ways it might be the most appealing for the property owners, because then they would get funds for that. Plus, the additional acreage might not make much of a difference in whatever sale price in this market that they might get for the house. So that could be a win-win for them. And it would be certainly a lot cleaner going to town meeting explaining that, if that's what's agreeable. That's my thought.
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree with Wayne. Tim, when we have talked about this, our main motivation was to get control over that property, the undeveloped property, and the affordable unit was going to be a bonus, which I still would love to be able to figure out a way, but the town's not general contractors.
Right.
And we don't have any mechanism in place to act as a GC. So, and nor does it sound like we have access to other people who could do that for us. So I would rather simplify it and go for just the land and lose. And it's because, again, it's not like we need the house. It would be a wonderful thing. I think it would be great to have an affordable single family home in town and, give that opportunity to a family. But not at the expense of risking losing the whole deal.
I think the land is just way more important than the house. It'd be nice, but dealing with one unit is kind of odd, and I think that's where we would have most of trouble at town meeting, is getting people on board with that. Even if the logistics of getting it and moved on weren't complicated, I think that the concept alone was gonna be a challenging battle at town meeting, whereas the land should hopefully be fairly straightforward. And yeah.
Good. Other thoughts?
I agree with what's been being said, that I think it sounds like it's going to be pretty complicated for us to make the single unit affordable housing work. But I do think we need to protect the center of town and get that piece of land available while it's there. I don't think that the opportunity is going to come up again if we miss it.
Definitely. Anyone else?
I just think
Go
the
ahead, Wayne.
logistics part that you were just talking about. Like, I think if it was really nailed down and you could, you had a really clear plan of who's going to do it and all that. I mean, even with all of those nailed down, you would still probably get questions about, oh, how sure are you about the figures, and
Right.
how much is going to come back, and how much, crystal ball stuff. And once people get into that mode, things blow apart. So I don't know. I just don't feel it's a safe decision. And I think, even with this sort of came through because we're not the generator of a project. This is really this is what conservation or in housing, so it's like, it's really without somebody else really being the catalyst. I mean, we're the catalyst, but not the instigator perhaps, or whatever, to figure it all out. I mean, it almost feels like we're stepping into that role, or members of the committee that are on other committees are stepping into that role. So I think it's just a lot cleaner.
Well,
think
and the good news is that the Housing Trust has been appointed, at least 4 members have been, and they're going to meet next week. And so going forward, they can be the catalyst for the use of CPA money that deals with housing. And this way, they end up with those funds available to them for projects that they want to drive forward. And it's a full house. None of that money's been expended, and it's going to be available for them as will working with the housing partnership and the funds that they have. So, it makes life a lot cleaner.
Yeah, but I think this is a good education of a process, because it's possible that a property similar to this with similar issues and things like that, could come up. And I do think, for all of us that have the experience of being at town meeting with complicated projects,
I don't know what you're talking about, Wayne.
I keep thinking South Street. I mean, we all saw that happen live in person if you were there that day. And so
Yeah.
I'll never forget that opportunity passing on something very simple. And this sounds far more complicated than that. So whatever it would be to split it off, as long as the owners are amenable to that, and I definitely think that's the way to go.
So they haven't been given us a specific number. I mean, I said to James, if we had 125, would that be a number that he thinks would work? And they'd, like you said, be able to turn around and sell the house and the lot for maybe even 300,000, and because it needs some work certainly, and come out ahead of the game at the end. I mean, they'd end up with 4.25 perhaps if we gave them 1.25 for the open space, and they could sell the house for 3.
How do we assess that's what that acreage is worth? Because somebody's going to say, well, how do you know that's what 6.5 acres is worth?
Yeah, it means about 20,000 an acre. We spent 10,000 an acre for Horseshoe, a large parcel, not in the center of town, and we can.
So you would
My-
expect
So we can do the math
We
that way,
expect-
or we can say a house lot in Berlin minimally is $200,000. And there is minimally at least one house lot in that 6.5 acres. So we're really paying just over half of what a house lot would cost.
Yeah, and that's justifiable given the fact that they'd have to create frontage if they wanted to explore the notion of having an additional lot, and that would cost them some dollars as part of that. So, you're still, I guess the 125 still seems like a reasonable number to shoot for. So I guess the question is we can go through these 3 articles, but if it sounds like the notion is abandon the affordable unit, focus primarily on the 6.5 acres. We can vote a preliminary number tonight and pitch that to James, have him get in touch with the homeowners and see how they feel about that number. And then we've got another meeting scheduled for April 4th. If that all fell through, then we'd know by then probably And it, if it means, we could start at 100 certainly and say, we have 100,000 available. Would that satisfy them? And if they said that wouldn't, we could have the option and a vote tonight to jump to 125 if we thought it was worthwhile.
So maybe a motion to amend that warrant article to up to 125 for just the land. Does
Yeah.
that sound like that's the better way to go? Do an up to number?
Yeah, and with
that
the
where-
notion of-
Is that where we'd want to cap it though? If they ask for 130 or something?
well, I mean, we can meet on the 4th, and if we,
I mean, in
I
some
mean,
ways,
right
we're
now, we're
negotiating.
only authorizing us to deal with a certain number. A cap is probably good, because if,
Well, I mean, I think, sorry, Tim.
it seems like, because the door is still there for us to meet again, if we decided that the number needed to go up a little bit, we could argue with ourselves as to whether that was justifiable or not.
I mean, the
Uh,
point is that when we go to town meeting, I mean, we have to have an agreed upon number with.
Yeah.
So I mean,
We have to
It's a
have an
matter of
agreed upon
conversation.
number before the warrant goes out.
Right.
I mean, so I don't even know if we need to be amended. We need to amend anything to make a motion in order to go have that conversation, or.
Well, I think we need to modify the article in such a way that we eliminate the notion of expending any of the community housing money for the acquisition of the house.
Well, I think if what Carolyn's saying makes sense, like that, if you guys are more familiar with the valuations of stuff, and I do think the comment you were saying about we paid, 10,000 an acre for Horseshoe Pond, but I mean, it's a much bigger property, so I don't think the price per acre, is going to be exactly applicable anyways. So I think between that and the, Carolyn's discussion of what a housing lot is worth, I mean, if 125 seems, nobody else other than the town would probably buy that additional acreage. So that's another whole thing. So, so whatever we offer, it's going to probably be, to their advantage over and above. So I think 125 makes sense. To offer that, and then if that's not acceptable, then, then we can have another conversation at our next meeting.
The planning board does have a plan on file that was submitted, never approved because it didn't move forward, but it was for the creation of 2 additional lots on the property and a small subdivision road that would have left us with 3 lots there, the existing and 2 additional ones. People have argued that it's not buildable, but
I was just gonna ask that.
our experience in town is such that we know damn well that pieces that aren't buildable are. We've experienced it over and over.
Over and over and over.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times someone has said, oh, that's not buildable.
Yeah.
There's one on Lancaster Road right now
Yeah.
that has been unbuilt on for 30 plus years. And it looks like it could actually be built on.
And Plastrages next to Ellie there.
Plastridge for sure.
Yeah, people never expected 7 lots out of that, and they pulled them out of there without too much trouble, so.
Right.
You have 2 lots on Gates Pond Road right next to a body of water that we never thought would happen. I remember there was one similar on Coffee Road, if I'm not mistaken. Where there were
Right.
all kinds of issues.
Because the reality is as technology advances, septic systems need less and less. Septics can be put in on properties that are obstacles now than they could have in the past.
Yeah.
So something, and that's what would make that property unbuildable, is being able to put a septic. And so, all of the metrics that we've traditionally always used oh, that's not a buildable lot. Well, now it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you said in a previous meeting, the costs, depending on who buys it, it might not cost that much for them to put in a road or do whatever and that kind of stuff. So, what might not seem feasible or to somebody like me who has no skill in doing that would have to pay somebody to do it. It's different if you've got all the equipment and that's what you do for a job, for your life, is to flip, is to create lots where there aren't any. So
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
Do
and you
people
put
think the one-
two houses up there that sell for $1 million each, that's $2 million. For short-ish money. Counting putting in a road. But
Right. So you started a motion. Do you want to repeat that motion?
sure, I'll even use some more words.
Big
I make a motion to amend the warrant article for the purchase of 72 Carter Street to eliminate the purchase of the house and only include the purchase of 6.5 acres for up to $125,000. I think that
Yeah,
covers it all.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
we do have a discussion because it came out as
Yeah.
Carol. Who's who's for where's the
Oh,
cost for
the
this?
125,000 is to come out of the undesignated
Yeah, balance reserve.
balance
Right.
reserve.
Right,
Yeah.
but as far as splitting the lot in half, is the town paying for that cost to survey it and split it? Is that gonna, because that would be over and above that cost of 125, or? I'm just
So,
asking it because that's
the-
how do you do it?
That would be, we could negotiate that two ways, I would think. We could say that, I mean, in some cases, administrative money out of CPA gets used to do appraisals and, surveys and stuff like that. So that's one option. The other option is to ask the landowner to tend to that and tell them that we'll cover that cost as part of the sale. That's whatever that amount is, we'll pay.
Well, as long as we make sure we've got the funds set aside to do that. That was my
Yep.
point. So I don't know if that has to be in this motion or not, or in one that we would figure out at the next meeting to further amend.
Well, I guess that's why having a meeting on the 4th might help us clean this one up.
I'm not saying we need to further adjust this one. I'm just bringing that point up so that it
Right.
can be, as you're discussing it, because I see the need to amend for that because someone would ask that question.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think the first order is to get agreement that the landowner or the house owner is willing to split it and sell us just the land.
Agreed.
Makes sense to me. So I second Carolyn's motion.
And shall we in that motion authorize Carolyn and Tim to negotiate with James? Is that what we want to do?
So move.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay. Any other discussion on this one? And we'll do a roll call. Carolyn,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Tim, aye. Okay, great. And then the next article is the pavilion. So does someone want to make a motion to expend 150 on the pavilion?
So
I
moved.
And the
Second.
second,
Second.
any discussion on that one?
Right, though, to refresh my memory, the 150 does is actually more than the current quote, right? That would cover any inflationary and that and some other stuff as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And the select board had some questions and Bob
Bob
Yeah.
Holmes.
answered those. And it had to do with, there was, I guess they began to talk about the other building that's been there, the old barn, and Bob, I thought rightfully so, just said, look, this is two separate issues. The disposal of that building or reuse of that building for other purposes is tangential to this pavilion issue. And as a result, you know, the CPA is moving forward with a proposal to deal with just the building, and that's what REC is asking for. And the other issues can be dealt with independently.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
The one thing about this that is just with the dollar amount, we talked about how you have to wait with the state reimbursement. So what's when they complete the pavilion, what's the process? Is it just not expended and therefore it becomes free again, or does that have to be dealt with at a town meeting to become identified as free after the fact?
Say that again.
Yeah, I understand.
Right,
So
there's-
if they only spent 145,000
Okay.
and 1,000 is unspent, how does that come back into the CPA coffers if we've appropriated it for that process? Does it have to be a town meeting? Or is it just a closeout of the project and therefore it wasn't expended, therefore it's automatically, I mean, it hasn't left our coffers, it's just no longer earmarked if they close it out. I don't know what that process is.
If it gets voted on at town meeting, it will leave our coffers.
Well,
That's what happened with the Horseshoe Pond money. Is it got moved out of CPA into an account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with the other one, the scoreboard too.
So I'm just wondering how it would come back. I'm not saying I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for the 150.
and I think that's what Maureen and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
was,
And that's
you know,
why I want that identification number, so you guys really do know that it was 145 spent, but not 150, so that you
Right.
do know that you're entitled to have that back.
We'll just
So-
add more landscaping.
There you go.
There you go.
Wait, we can spend that money if you're worried about that.
It's fine by me.
It would be, but I bet there are things that, like, I think the fence project might end up coming in under. I mean, I think you'll be surprised that there will be things that will come in under. But that's why that thing, and it needs to be discussed with June. And
Yeah.
There's also some there in the past, I've seen sunset clauses put in on warrant articles, you know, if the money is not spent in 2 years or whatever, it comes back.
Carolyn, that
Yes,
rain
dear.
was biting us during COVID.
Oh, sure.
You know, that's why the roof wasn't done on the town offices. Got the
Oh,
money, but by the time everything happened, the asphalt's, everything was shut down.
right.
And then when it started opening up again, then they'd find out, like Julie did, the bids were too low, and Sunset isn't so bad, but let's give it like 2 or 3 years before
Sure.
it's a problem. And I love to hound people, so no, I'll take that on.
We all do, Eloise. That's like just the joy of our jobs.
But I guess it's like, even without having to hound people, like if the fence job is done, you know, in fiscal 2023 and it's $5,000 under, does it require something, a voted town meeting to move it back into CPA coffers? I guess that's what I'm trying to understand.
I would imagine so. I mean, don't we every year have like some emergency vehicle purchases that came in at different amounts, and we're having, you know, generally
Right, but
Have
that's for
closed out.
over it. That's if it costs more than what was budgeted for.
Well, I'm saying, don't we generally at town meeting have closeouts on various things?
Oh, that's true, huh?
So I'll have a conversation with Linda Galoni in Hudson because she's been on their CPA committee forever and ever, and they must have a clear understanding of how money flows in and out of their accounts when it either is not expended or a series of years pass. Because I know they take money back. They've got a mechanism that they utilize when it doesn't get expended for a too long period of time. So I'll chat with her and then we can incorporate that into the application process as we move forward with that. Okay. So we've got a motion for the 150 and a second. Any other discussion? So we'll do a roll call on this one. Carolyn,
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Tim, aye. Is that everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Good. And then the last one's the fence. So I got a request for 45,000 for a fence at River Bridge for the community
So
garden.
move.
In a second.
Second.
And any discussion on this one?
This one's been discussed to death.
Yes, I agree.
All right, and we'll do a roll call on this. MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Wayne.
Aye.
Tim, aye. All right, great. Nice job, everybody.
Yay.
Good job.
Housing coordinator. I'm going to meet with Central Mass again first part of next week. They've got a number of towns that are interested in participating. To review that, essentially, it's a 3-year relationship to have a housing coordinator who'd be working regionally, but spending time with probably 4 or 5, 6 towns. We'd be one of them, probably Shrewsbury, Grafton, Mendon, Auburn, maybe West Boylston. I can't remember what the other one was, but it would be someone that would be tuned into what's going on the commission level and within the region, but also because there's district local technical assistance money that's become available now for the commission to use in helping towns apply for grants, particularly federal grants, but also state grants. I think the coordinator would end up being able to be that liaison between the Housing Trust as it's newly formed, and it's going to be up and running just about the same time that this position would become available. So the first year's no charge. The second year would be doing 10,000 out of CPA, and the third year would be 10,000 out of CPA, and the remainder of the fee based on their experience would be somewhere probably in the $4,000 or $5,000 range, and the planning board is comfortable with, and I think Eloise is comfortable with the notion of using housing partnership funds to make up the difference. So although we're not voting on this as an article for the town meeting, it would be helpful if I could say to the commission that the CPA committee is comfortable with the expenditure in the future and in the 24 and 25 and 26 fiscal year, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So if people have thoughts about that and whether they think it's a valuable thing to do or not, we need to have a little discussion. So any thoughts?
I think it's a timely thing for us to get involved with our brand new housing trust. I think it will help them get up and going much faster than they would if they were on their own. So I would be in support of it.
Excuse me, Tim, are you going to bring this to the attention of the Housing Trust when they meet next week?
I brought it to their attention in a series of notes I sent to them. And so I'm going to meet with them next week as well.
Well, I or Kate in today, so.
So the four members of the trust are Kate Hendrick,
Yeah,
right? Lauren Kolka.
yeah,
I think it's Kukla.
Kukla, Lisa
so.
Wasaki, and Scott Hawkins. And
correct.
if Eloise gets permission from the ethics committee, it would hopefully be Eloise Sauls as the fifth member. And that's that's a pretty strong group, because Lisa's chief of staff for our our state senator now. And then Lauren works for a firm in Needham that deals with helping folks qualify for affordable housing. And Scott, of course, lives in the co-housing project, which gives him some insight as to what's going on in some of the alternative types of housing that are out there. And
I believe he bought Kevin Kraszewski's house.
yeah, he did. But he's certainly familiar with what's going on across the street. And then Kate had lived in town for a long while and moved away for a bit and now is back. So she's familiar with Berlin. And Eloise, we know Eloise merits. So I don't have to talk about those. So it would be a powerful committee in my mind.
Could you tell my kids?
I'd be happy to.
Just saying.
Other discussion on that?
We'll get you a T-shirt that says that on.
Yeah.
There you go.
So does someone want to make a motion in principle that we would be willing to spend 10,000 a year in fiscal 25 and 26 for the sort of engagement of a housing coordinator with the Regional Planning Commission?
So move.
Second,
And any discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes.
That money would be able to come out of the affordable housing bucket, or it would come out of the undesignated?
You can come
affordable.
out of the affordable housing bucket.
Okay, just to clarify.
So yeah, it doesn't impact any of the other types of projects. It's a housing issue. Any other questions? Roll call. So Ellie,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Tim, I. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to let Maureen run the next part of the show. In regard to the application process.
Well, I don't really have to run the show. Hopefully
course.
everybody got
Why not?
to view it and
You want to share a screen? Do we have? Carolyn's got it at her place, probably, because you sent it out.
yeah. She
So
sent
it's the email that you sent the other day?
Yeah.
the email that I sent the other day.
All right, give me a second here, I'll get it.
So as I said, those were I looked at probably 5 towns. Really liked Concord, Mass and Stowe, Mass and they've accomplished a lot of stuff too. I mean, no sense in reinventing the wheel. They've done a lot of stuff with housing and they've used their funding very, very well.
Maureen, do you want me to do the words about the application process or the actual application?
Let's quickly go through the application. I think we've already kind of reviewed it before.
Alright. Share Oh, actually, hold on. Not quite
The
ready
only,
to-
and like I said, there'll be other things probably coming. I didn't want to slam with you a lot of stuff, but what I think I also like with the actual application is that there can be a front page cover sheet that I can actually, when I receive it, I can check off what's there, because sometimes, you know, people might submit support letters, so we'll check that off on the front, or you might need a survey, or you need, you know, like we can create a form letter for the sign off for the property owner. You might want a, you know, a property card, or which is interesting. Actually, someone came in the office today asking to look at 72 Carter Street on the map. So I kind of worked with her on that and gave her a picture of it. And she thought it looked great. She's, oh yeah, it really does break through all the way over here, kind of thing. So that was great. So, you know, this is not too different from what it was. The only big thing I think is we've moved to November 1st. But we probably should maybe add onto this application too, is that, you know, the best place to do is to get started. Really, I think late summer, early fall, or really whenever. And the bottom part is the admin aspect of it, and everybody should really have that first meeting presentation. I think the pavilion is a really great example of how most towns actually do it. Like the application comes in, then they meet with you all, you discuss it, then they come back in with their final presentation or application. Like that was, it really will always likely be a two-step, could be more than that, but more than likely a two-step. And then I'll, you know, we'll create that application number. I want to work with June on that. So it's pretty basic.
And so the deadline for November 1st is for the annual town meeting,
Correct.
right? And there's no pre-application, just a preliminary presentation.
Right. Yeah. So we'll always still keep
A lot.
that's it. So like everybody will end up having a file. And, you know, like I said, Bob Holmes did a really great job, because it's like he came in, he first did this, then he sent up, so he reworked it, sent in what he had reworked, which was great. And, you know, took, you know, all, you know, the notes and the actions that were required. So that's pretty much how most of them should work. You know, when you get your bigger projects, you know, 72 Carter Street might have been an example of this, but now it wouldn't be. You'd be using, you know, two different buckets, and you know, there would probably have to be some more math on that. And it's a pretty basic application. It's not too hard, I don't think.
I think it's cleaner than what we started with, for sure.
Good.
Change that to FY25 on the bottom there. You have the 24. It's going to actually be 25. So applications will be coming in on 23 for funding for 25. The actual date to that. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Right, because we're in FY24 now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, these things are fluid, so they can definitely move along, but
We're in fiscal year 23.
Are we?
It's whatever ends in June 30th. That's the fiscal. So
Oh, right.
now we're in 23, so fiscal year 23,
right. So your applications
on
are
fiscal year 24.
Right.
But when someone brings this application in, it's going to be for the November 1st date in 23.
Three.
Right, but it'll
For
be for
for
funding.
fiscal 25,
5, yeah.
Right.
because it won't be till May of 24.
Yeah.
Right.
So every year when I change the due date, I'll also change the bottom and I didn't change it on this and I'll update that before. You know, oh, I did put it on yours.
Right here.
actually.
Yeah. Right
I
there.
guess my printed copy, I must have printed it before I sent it to you guys when I proved it. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it. It's, you know, some other towns were, I think, a little overboard. Some a little bit less than this, a little bit more simple. So this is kind of in between.
Looks good.
And could I ask you to share it with capital planning?
Sure.
Thank you.
And then I think my one question for you folks is it should be on the website, I think, correct? But
Yes.
we won't put this one out until after maybe the April 4th meeting, just to keep things. And hopefully we'll have our account for email, which will be nice.
Right. And you can add that on here if you do.
Yeah, so what,
Or do you want them handed in?
well, no, I think anybody can do it. They can email it, mail it, or hand deliver it. And again, like, you know, if it's a bigger thing and there's plans or something that's coming, you know, they might want to hand deliver it. I'm fine anyway. You
I think
know,
it's a good
but
way to put the email address on there though, just because the more people don't have to go dig somewhere else to know what they're supposed to do with it, you know, submit to, blah, blah, blah.
yeah. So the application process actually has that in step 1, like the applications can be, so it's got the 3 bullet points. So ideally how I would hope we would put the website, we'd put the application process first and then the application. So then they would know that.
Mhm.
Like, as you see on that, I've got the blank at Town of Berlin because I haven't gotten that confirmed yet. And I want to stop using Adama. It's just, it's a lot with the assessing stuff. So I'm just trying to keep the two a little bit more separate.
Awesome.
But anyone can send changes anytime. I have, you know, no problem. I think
Yeah.
having that completed date also kind of helps people too, to understand that, okay, it's like, you know what, kind of really get that process kind of, you know, planned.
Yep.
Other questions or thoughts? Good.
Awesome.
Then the steps.
Okay. So you want that next?
Yes. And this is where I think you guys really need to give your feedback on it. Like these were things that I, you know, obviously think as an admin, but you guys, you know, more of someone that's going to be working with the applicants, if there's stuff missing.
Alright.
Well, I'm thinking of it too. I'd also like to get the actual meeting dates posted on the website, so someone could almost in advance of speaking to me, say, you know what, this date works for me, that one doesn't work for me. And I can, you know, get that agenda kind of started.
So right off the bat, I guess I would say on step 1, even though that's November 1st is the deadline, you might want to put something but applications can, are encouraged before that or
Or
something.
just put comma or sooner.
Well,
That's my,
if you-
that's my very first line though, Karen.
yeah, if you look at the bold text above,
Oh, see, you, you may want to reiterate it there.
Maybe it needs to be bold and italics
Yes,
In
and
flash.
underlined.
Nobody reads the very first line.
yeah. I know, because when you do see a deadline, and that does trigger
That
people.
becomes, right, so like Eloise
Mm.
said, just comma or sooner.
Right, I think I'll do, yeah, like
Yeah,
circle back up,
yeah, see above.
yeah. No, trust me, I know, I have children, so the worst thing I could ever do was give a deadline.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you're encouraging them to do it before that.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Like I said, I hope we can get that, that account, just seeing if there's any ones that aren't being used, so we don't have to pay for another one. I don't like that now, like when I reread things, letters of support recommended. No, that's okay, I guess, that's. So
Yeah.
so what I'm thinking, what I was thinking with that is that, so those don't have to actually be with the very first application, but when you like say, I don't know, like say, like even the cemetery commission could come in to do some work. But they might want to, have maybe the historic committee, give them a letter of support kind of thing. Like, so those would be things that, like if they, I know, I'm not coming up with this. This was an idea that I've seen used in other towns. So they're going to like restore some of the headstones or something, but that definitely falls under the historic. And then you would want the historic commission to give a letter of recommendation because they would support that historic bucket being utilized for that project.
Mhm.
That's what I'm thinking, letters like when it's kind of like, crossovers on different things.
On the little header before those bullets, I guess I put the word if, because you may not require all those, so would be advised.
Right.
if.
And that's why when they come in, I want to kind of have that spreadsheet and I can check what would be there. So that you would know like in advance, like they, that we have that kind of stuff. Because every project, there won't be any project that will have exactly the same criteria. It's just never going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, the earlier they start, that gives them more wiggle room, to make their last meeting with you, to really have as much. And if they do need an extra meeting, that's helpful too.
Right.
And then this is where it kind of gets more into kind of your stuff. Like, I think as you guys move on into the future, if there's another year like this year where we weren't sure, we didn't have the certified funding, you might actually still have your applicants at this next meeting kind of thing. There might still be people always coming and still kind of making that last push. Like, I think Bob Holmes had actually sent an email out about 2 weeks ago, and that was what I got from the email, was kind of like, so do you need to see me again? Do I need to say anything? What can I do? I want to do this kind of thing. So I think in the future, that's probably going to start happening more.
In the first bullet on that page, why are we discussing borrowing?
Where's that?
It is because CPA projects are allowed to borrow.
Yeah. You can
Like
take it
it-
out if you think it's too much, but I think what I was trying to do there too, from looking at Concord and Stowe and having the experience in Groton, you want to make sure, like, sometimes people think if you say, okay, it's a done deal, but it really is town meeting that really.
Oh, no, I'm not questioning that bullet. I think that's fine. I just don't understand the borrowing thing, Carolyn.
Oh,
I don't understand how are the funds awarded or not awarded? I don't understand that. Or are we like a,
If there,
down
let's say
payment
there's
and-
a $5 million project that will use CPA funds, but there's not $5 million in CPA, the town can vote to borrow the 5 million against future CPA funds.
so here in
It is an
Littleton, yeah,
allowed,
we bought the Yap property that way, so we actually have a 20-year note on that. And every year when the money comes to see, that money is already designated off to pay off the Yap property. So it's, yeah.
Thank you.
In
I
the
don't think
second,
it's something a lot of people do, but it is
No.
allowed.
in-
Yeah. I
sometimes,
think it's
in-
good to leave that in there. I don't think
Yeah.
we'd want to do it if you want that option to be on the table if.
Yeah, I
something-
just
Yep.
understand that.
You could, yeah, so if you wanted to take it out and leave it just in case, like if something does come through. It's funny, the Yap property, one of our first things with CPA here in my town was actually borrowing.
Wow.
Because we didn't have any money yet, so it's like, let's just jump right in. It's a beautiful property, though, it really is nice.
I
the-
mean, sorry.
the
Yeah.
second bullet, applicant expected to attend. I guess my feeling is that the CPA committee ought not to be the one that makes the motion at town meeting. We can report that we've supported it, but I guess I'd rather see the proponent be the one that makes the motion and explains the article. We could certainly, like we've done at other town meetings, introduce the three projects and announce that we've supported them, and that's why they're on the warrant. But then let the articles be presented independently by the groups that sponsor them. How do people feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's how we've done it in the, two town meetings that we've actually had CPA spending. Right, Julie, someone from rec got up and talked about your projects at town meeting, right?
Yep, that's correct. The people that spearhead the project spoke to it.
Right,
I think Tim's point is just to make it, expected to attend the town meeting and present information about the
Yeah.
product. And
right,
respond to
not
questions.
aid in the
Not aid.
presentation, give the presentation. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you just remove aid in the presentations. Or just say and present. And put that before respond to questions.
right.
I think just going back to the one above, I think if you, I don't remember what's above it, but I think if you just want to, if the point is to make it clear, it's just like, that CPA only recommends project, funding must be approved by town meeting, period. I don't know that extra, the other one is the details of like how many votes and all this other stuff, but I think it's a lot of detail for this outline of, what the process is. So
Okay.
I don't know, I guess I would just similar. But I think that's a good point to just reiterate that, because you were just saying people get confused, like when, CPA says, oh yeah, we're approving your all we're approving is that we're going to put it in front of town meeting.
Right.
Right.
So I think that's just tighten that up, language up.
There are other options beside the project is approved at town meeting. Do we want to include those here as well? I mean, they can approve the project as requested. They can approve the project with less money. They can approve the placement of the funds in the appropriate account for later use. but not at this time, or they can turn it down completely. Do we
Or
want
do
to
we-
find all those options or just leave it as,
Right, because really what that should say is the project is voted on at town meeting. Because it may not be approved,
yeah, we could
or
just
may
simply,
be conditionally approved.
Yeah,
You like
So we
voted
could just-
versus award. Town meeting has the final authority to award funds.
Yeah.
Vote On, okay.
Right, so but on step 9,
I think
where
if
it says project is approved at town meeting, it should say voted on at town meeting.
and you could put if approved, a CPA funding agreement is signed, you know.
yeah,
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
Good. Other thoughts?
So I'll make like another little set of bullets on what the options that can happen at town meeting then.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
So if you redraft this, Maureen, we can look at this again at
The 4th.
the 4th, yeah.
Yep.
That all right with
And
everybody?
was the letter on that, Carolyn, or did I not send you guys the letter?
Let me look.
I think I gave you the letter. It was very, very like simple. It would just, you guys won't even look at it. I'll be just sending it out, have Tim sign it.
No. So I had the agenda, the minutes, those 2 documents we just looked at, and then
It wasn't at the bottom of the steps.
bottom of the steps. Did I shut? Oh, yep. Sorry, I closed that early.
Yeah.
So it's because what helps, I think, in this is that people understand they can't use the money until July 1st. And well, that the invoices aren't coming to you, they're going to be going to the town accountant. This will be like officially given to them and then in their file. Kind of saying, please, use your project number on any invoices that your contractors are going to be having.
Nice.
And just another way to track it for us.
Right. And so this is the letter you send. So then you also have or will have an agreement that will be signed.
So that's my question to you guys. So this is the letter. There are some that do agreements too, and that has to do with like progress reports, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. So I didn't send that in this package because I want to know if that's the way you guys want to go. Do you think this is going to be efficient enough? Maybe you do it on a case by case, like if it's a bigger situation. I don't know. I like this finalizing though, because if I see that on the top, that means that they're kind of into that next phase of actually getting the project started.
Yeah, no, I definitely like this because like it also lets them know, okay, here's what you now do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, I mean-
so 'cause, like Stowe has a really very defined agreement, but they've done some like major housing things over there. So I think it's really because of things that are more at that kind of more complex level. So it could be a case by case that there's an agreement drafted.
Are there projects tending to be ones that are done through other town boards? Like pretty much everything we've dealt with has been something coming from within town government. Are there's ones that are internal to town government or external or both?
I know Concord has everything. Like it's amazing who puts in applications over there. It's insane because an individual can actually put in an application too. But I do think Stowe, which I think is most comparable, it's pretty much just like boards and committees that are, active within town government.
Okay.
I guess my only thought with some of this is, thinking about invoicing and paying and is there any document that talks about, who has to authorize payment of an invoice? I mean, to approve it when it gets submitted or.
Yeah, and that's on the discussion with June. So so we need to speak with June. I want to ask her how she would like to see, like I said, it's going to be similar to a purchase order situation. How much of this stuff does she want for her files? Like, does she want this letter that does authorize that? Like, so there's going to be like a whole administrative aspect for June, but I think she probably has a good grip on how she wants that to come in and who's going to be signing off on them, just because she's got a year and a half under her belt now on this. So
Sounds good.
yeah.
There is the question of verification though, isn't there? And somebody submits an invoice. How do we assure June that it's actually work that's been completed?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's why, like, I think in the stuff that I was watching in Concord, they're so funny. They actually have a meeting where they do they invite people that might potentially be applicants to come for instructions. They actually do a meeting for the application kind of thing.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's like, okay, we're not going to go there exactly. But,
Right.
But they actually, that's why they like 2 points of contact. And I think and then both those signatures would need to be on that invoice and because it's kind of like, I think you guys have some great applications in front of you for learning purposes, because there should really be somebody that's, a work of the clerks at some of these, like the pavilion and the tennis courts, things like that. There really needs to be a person that's assigned to that. And, making sure like the building inspectors out there doing the right inspections and whatnot.
But,
like
maybe maybe in this or in an agreement, it would outline like who are the authorized people, that invoices, that's again coming from June, are expected to be authorized.
Yeah.
So it's in this document so that June could reference it back and say, okay, did these people authorize it?
Right.
Like
So
a good example would be like, and this is just from my land use years, I would tell anybody, don't pay your electrician until you have proof of the final inspection on your electrical work. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if you say, oh, I'm looking for my check, just say, oh, can I see a copy of your final inspection kind of thing? Those are just, so someone's going to have to be, somebody watching this project, like I said, a clerk of the works to see what's happening, and they should be the ones that are signing off. But we'll talk to June to see how she feels about it.
right. So on certainly projects that the size of the stuff that we have now, if we said that the proponent, especially if it stays in town government, the proponent should see all invoices before they're paid or something, because the proponent is the one who has put together the project, knows
I think so.
getting paid what. At least so that the person who put together the plan has eyes on what bills are being submitted.
Right.
Good. So we'll redraft this, and any other discussion on this particular topic tonight?
Nope.
Yeah, I think we've made some good progress, and we revisit it the next time we meet. We've got a proposal here to meet on the 4th at 7:30. Is that convenient for folks?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can't meet, but someone from our committee can.
Okay. So we'd already set that date as one of the ones that we'd meet, so
Right.
we'll continue to plan
Yeah.
on meeting that night at 7:30. Anything else for tonight? All right, like I said, I'll meet with finance tomorrow night. I'll redraft that article. I'll be in touch with town council. And
Do you want me to get in touch with James Holyoke?
yeah. Why
Or
don't
do
you
you
and I
want-
talk tomorrow and
Okay,
we'll put together a battle plan.
okay.
When's good for you tomorrow?
Can I call you on my way to work in the morning?
Do it. Sounds good.
Sometime between 8 and 9, no,
Yeah, that's a good way for you to spend
theoretically around 8:45.
a good way for you to spend your journey into work.
Exactly.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
And it's non-debatable. MJ,
Aye.
Julie,
aye.
Carolyn,
Aye.
Eloise,
Aye.
Ellie,
Aye.
Wayne,
I.
Tim, I, unanimous.